Hi everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rapping with the Rep. I'm State Representative Ken Gordon, and I'm here with Bob Buckley. Bob is the director of the Middlesex 3 Coalition as well as the Burlington Area Commerce. And we're going to talk about traffic. You know, when I meet people here in the district, no matter who I talk to, tall or short, young, old, everyone in between, traffic is the issue that's the concern to us all, the business people and the residents alike. I've been addressing the issue of traffic since I was elected as state representative, and I've been working with the Middlesex 3 Coalition, which has not only a great idea as to how to address traffic, but is actually doing something about it, and I'm happy that we're working together. The coalition started a Transportation Management Association, a TMA, just in the last few weeks. It's finally all come together, but it's been in the works for quite a while. And Bob, I want to talk to you about the Middlesex 3 and the TMA.
Sure. Well, before I get to that, Ken, I'd just like to say when the current administration first came in, when you were first elected, I think it was one of the first meetings we had together, you brought a list of issues that you wanted the business community to focus on, and one of them was traffic. And one of the first meetings we had was with the governor, where I think we both echoed the same comment, which is that there are a number of studies. Everyone can study. But we need to have some real tangible results to prove that it's not just theoretical.
No.
And I think the governor was shocked when I said, you know, Governor, I'm sure there's a room in the State House that is full of studies. And he said, I can show you that room.
That's what I remember he said.
So I want to compliment you on the fact that from day one you forced the issue and have attended all of the meetings on Middlesex 3 on this issue. And we are proud to say that shortly thereafter we did actually implement a program with one business, E-Inc., as the prototype, so to speak, to see if there was demand, and lo and behold, there's tremendous demand.
Yes.
And from that we have applied for grants, and we recently signed, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, Middlesex 3 is forming a TMA, which is a Transportation Management Association, to have tangible results addressing the traffic issues. The response has been overwhelming in terms of businesses that want to participate. We are currently in the phase of working on identifying what makes sense in terms of integration with the communities, which there are 9 communities now in Middlesex 3. And what businesses, where the stop should be, what municipal services, how can the municipalities take advantage of this? So I would say over the next 2 to 3 months, we're in that collection and analyzing data to come out with an effective and creative approach to handling traffic issues. And again, I want to thank you for being a guiding force there, not always telling us when we were chasing windmills, what makes sense and how to work it through, and to be creative and be responsive.
So folks, this is what a TMA is, a Transportation Management Association. What that is an organization that now businesses can turn to through the Middlesex 3 Coalition, and they could say, look, we need some alternate forms of transportation. We need to find either ride shares or shuttle service to get our employees from the zip codes where they live to the places where we're located. And the reason that they're saying that is because they are disadvantaged. They have to do something as a business about getting their employees to work through the traffic as it currently exists. And this is all, it's a cycle, because once businesses are able to do that, what happens is that we're bringing cars off the road. For example, the shuttle services, we're talking about a full-size bus, really, with call it 40 seats.
Right.
If you can fill that with 40 people that would otherwise be driving, if it's one person, one car, like has been existing, that's 40 cars off the road.
Right.
Get 10 of those, there's 400 cars off of the Burlington roads, right? And so it helps our residents as far as now we're bringing traffic down. It's helping our businesses because they can find a way to attract high-tech employees from Cambridge who otherwise would have been looking to stay in Cambridge and work there. Because we're talking about younger employees for the most part, coming out of the Cambridge colleges for the most part, and they haven't had cars yet. They don't want to be responsible for a car. They don't want to park the car. There's probably no place to park it there anyway. They don't want to insure the car. They're used to the systems of Zipcar or Lyft. These types of situations will probably be more popular in the future.
Right.
And now our employers don't have to pay them essentially what the Cambridge employers are paying them plus a bonus or an additional payment because they've got to buy a car now.
And I always use the expression in the old commercial, it's not your father's Oldsmobile.
Right.
I mean, when people think of shuttle services, it's not the traditional airport shuttle service that people used to think about. What the young professional, or perhaps not even the young professional, demands today, are they Wi-Fi capable?
Right. And these are.
What happens if they are? That's we have to rethink the model. Is there if I take the 8 a.m. shuttle out of Cambridge and I have to go home early unexpectedly, how do I get home?
Right.
So we have to face those issues and come up with a program that, as I said, is efficient, responsive, and creative. Well, these issues didn't exist in the past. It used to be you set up a shuttle service, and if you want to go, you go. If you're not, you don't use it. And oftentimes it wasn't efficient, so people stopped using it.
Well, and there is an answer to that question. If someone has an emergency in the middle of the day so that they're not stranded.
Rides on demand.
The rides on demand. So
Right.
essentially, the employee would receive something
Right.
like a cab voucher or
Right.
something more.
And we're also
elaborate than
looking at
that.
creative ways of making, is it a benefit to employees? Does the business itself, as one of their benefits, subsidize Bob Buckley who wants to ride the shuttle? And that's, when you use it as a recruiting tool if someone's coming to town. That if you work for XYZ Corporation, we will provide for your transportation or help subsidize your transportation costs. And I always say it's a law of large numbers. If someone is commuting by car, in addition to the frustration of sitting on either 128 or the local roads, there's a cost factor. There's owning the car, there's the insurance, there's the gasoline, there's the maintenance. And all that, if you multiply it out on a yearly basis, it's a large number.
It is a large number.
And so when you start doing that, people say it makes some sense. And one thing you alluded to in your introduction is that, the employee from Cambridge coming out here, it sometimes amazes me that a lot of people say, well, why would we do something that benefits other communities? And it doesn't benefit other communities because that person from Cambridge is coming to Burlington or Chelmsford or Lowell regardless. And by using this, we are hopefully improving the area roads because we're taking that employee off the road and making it predictable and it services the whole corridor. We have to start thinking a corridor approach versus a little fiefdom.
Absolutely. It all feeds into itself.
Right.
That Burlington business we want to keep here because the Burlington businesses are paying the costs of running the community, 60% of those costs, and we don't want to chase them out of Burlington.
Right.
And the fact that their employees may come from a different municipality is only benefiting Burlington because it keeps that business here and thriving. In fact, I met with an owner of a business called Knowledge Path, I think it was last weekend, and I told him about this program, and he gave me a big grin, a big smile. I said, well, thank you for the smile. I said, I'll tell you more. And he said, we're in the process of moving out of Burlington. This was a fellow who lived here in Burlington. And he said, I'll tell you why. He said, because Burlington's, we're looking at Cambridge. And he said, Cambridge's rents are much higher.
Right.
But we have to pay so much more for our employees in Burlington who would rather be in Cambridge because we've got to pay the difference in that commuter cost. And it's expensive.
Right.
And so we're competing with these businesses and we have a disadvantage. It's actually something we would consider as paying the additional rent in Cambridge because there's a flip. It's a financial
Right.
disincentive.
And that's a very persuasive story because years ago, I'm dating myself, but years ago, a company would decide to locate in a community. It may come and meet with the state rep. It may meet with the town administrator or the board of selectmen and say, tell me something about your community. Nowadays, decisions are made in a boardroom. It may be or in a company that's in Chicago or L.A. or Cambridge or whatever. They never put the feet on the ground and come and knock on doors and say, what's Burlington like?
Right.
They base their decisions upon what they read in social media, what they read in the newspapers, and they have a full analysis as to why would we want to locate them in Burlington. And I think being creative, being innovative, and doing it in a way that has tangible results bodes well for the community. And irrespective of the tax implications, where the business community pays a certain percentage of the taxes, as I always tell people, try unemployment for 6 months and tell me how you feel. Because as you lose jobs, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
You lose jobs, property values go down, schools go down. It's difficult to backstop that decline. And if you don't think other communities or other regions in the country are competing for the talent we have here, you're crazy. Because years ago, people would graduate from your Cambridge schools, which one of them I won't mention, which I don't particularly like, but because of a little rivalry.
Yes,
But
yes.
the nowadays people go where the jobs are, and they go with technology allows you to do that. So we have to be able to respond to the changing environment, and I think Middlesex 3 is I spend a lot of time. I would get criticized in the office quite a bit, but I do think it's one of the things that is going to have long-term tangible results. Who's to say that someday we don't have a dedicated commuter line or commuter lane on Middlesex 3, so that if you ride on one of Middlesex 3 shuttle services, you have a dedicated lane where you don't have to sit in traffic.
Exactly.
And if I'm an employee and I say, okay, I can get on a bus in Lowell and come down, and I don't have to sit in that traffic because I have a dedicated express lane that brings me to whatever stop we decide makes sense. That to me is a benefit.
And that's where we're headed. That's where we're starting with the step of bringing employees from Cambridge in.
Right.
But then it webs out from there.
Right.
Because, and you mentioned that we're not only talking about high-tech employees coming from Cambridge that benefit from this, because other businesses have opened in the last 2 years in Burlington as a result of the fact
Right.
that these high-tech businesses have
Right.
opened. So we've had restaurants that have blossomed. We've had many new restaurants opening, and we've had other businesses, and I asked them, why did you come here? Because people are here now,
Right.
and they need our services.
Right.
And when you mention that even if I'm not a Cambridge person, or how do we all benefit irrespective of the taxes,
take them off
that's
the
how we all
list. Right,
benefit.
right.
Because this is all helping each other.
And it's amazing. Some of the surveys we've done, and again, I'm dating myself, but surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, it's very important for employees that if they could sit on a public or a bus, and that 45 minutes that they otherwise would have been in the car, they're answering emails and doing their social media activities, their response is that frees up more time in their evenings.
Right. That's true.
And it's that hidden gem as you start to probe the data that you start saying this makes sense. And as I said, the response has been overwhelming. We are currently before the state for another grant for implementation, and I want to acknowledge your major assistance in that. We're lucky that we have someone who's carrying the banner for us at the corridors of the State House, because we passionately believe in this, but you know how to get us through that maze, and that's important. But it's a very exciting time. I'd rather, as I have told you in the past, I'd rather react and fine-tune based upon trying something and failing and learning from that failure to say, okay, we should have done this, let's do this, let's tweak that, than doing another study that has black and white numbers that says this is what the numbers say. Well, reality sometimes doesn't fit the numbers. And I think that the feedback loop that we're creating here over time, and I think that's the other important issue, that people have to be patient. But as I say, if you don't start, you'll never start, and you'll never have any results. So we've started.
Well, we've actually done both.
Right.
Because not only has this started already, but we are collecting data. We
Right.
do know from the employer's point of view
Right.
where their employees are coming
Right.
from. We know that, and we know that they're receptive. And we hear from the restaurants, for example, who have said, well, what about us?
Right.
In fact, I'm meeting next week with a group of restaurant owners who are saying, that's great, but our employees don't have cars either, and they're coming in from Lowell or from other places.
And sometimes at different hours.
And at different hours.
And here's the other hidden gem in this whole process. The municipalities can benefit because to the extent that you're off-peak during the day, that you have the Council on Aging, you have other services, or you can integrate with the B line in Burlington or the Lex Express in Lexington or the Lowell Regional Transportation System and say, okay, this is where we're operating. How can we overlap, coordinate so that everyone's being served in a rational manner?
Right.
Now that is a daunting task, and that's why the first 3 months are collecting and analyzing that data, going to the municipalities and saying that based upon a zip code analysis, we think that a stop here, and whatever makes some sense. And then the businesses have been very receptive. If we have a central location where you drop, people coming from Lowell, surprisingly, the numbers of people coming south almost rival the amount coming north. And it's no longer Cambridge. Do you know where the people are coming from? North Station in Boston.
Yep.
That seems to be a new nucleus for people coming out of the city. So when you integrate all that together, hopefully we're going to develop some rational routes and stops. And there are going to be mistakes along the way, or hiccups, and we'll have to react to them. But at least we're doing something.
Right, and anything is possible.
Right.
A number of residents have said to me, well, we work in Boston. Can we, in a sense, use this transportation back?
Right.
Well, we've got to find a place to leave people's cars because the only way it would work is to have a place that the transportation could pick them up.
Right.
And once we solve that challenge, then again, there's no reason why not to do that, because the TMA is dynamic in that way.
And the Middlesex 3 is unique in that it brings the public sector at the local level, the public sector at the state level, the businesses, and some of the technical people all together. The universities, we can't discount those. If you see what's happening up at the University of Lowell, it's amazing, and that's going to become an epicenter for innovation and development and creativity. So we have to make sure that the flow of both sides, people coming from here to there and there to here, moves as smoothly as we can, and make use of limited resources. We don't build roads anymore. I think the Big Dig showed that we do it, and we do it once every 100 years, and we perhaps don't do it well, although it does work well. But we don't have the land to build the roads. So we have to make things work, and that requires perhaps a new model and thinking outside the box. I hate that expression, but this is an appropriate.
The issue is, if we widen the roads, we'll just have more cars to fill those wider roads.
But if you look at Route 3, the layout is sufficient. Why not have a dedicated lane that works at such and such times and is only for those who make use of this service?
And you know what happens once we do that? We begin to straighten out the traffic on 128. Because it all backs up there.
That's right.
And again,
everything's
it all works itself out.
Everything is interrelated. I always use the expression, it's like a water balloon. If you push down here, it's coming up over here. So you have to try to find that equilibrium, and that requires looking at all the issues and making sure they all work together.
And the TMA can also look at bike paths as well. There are many employees.
That and electric cars and providing alternatives for zip cars and other services. They should all be integrated into it. I mean, if you have a bike and you want to get down to someplace in the Burlington area and then bike the last 2 miles to work, go for it. And that means that businesses will have to have shower facilities and storage facilities that are secure so that they're protected. But those issues come out through the discussions, and it's a very exciting time. It's a daunting task, but as I said, we have to start, and if we don't start, shame on us.
Right, and we have started.
Which
is really what I'm proud of. Yeah. We're going to talk about workplace development, workforce training. Before we do, Joan and our crack staff, if you could give us the clock out here, otherwise we'll be talking for about 2 hours, I have a feeling, but we need to keep track of our time. So we, in the legislature, we passed a law signed by the governor last month that was a new Economic Development Act.
Right.
And in it, we've got some funding and some support for some workforce training in this area. I'm excited about that because, among other things, what it's going to do is it's going to help the mid-level jobs. We've been talking about the Cambridge employees coming at the high level of the tech force, but we have a lot of mid-level jobs that people are looking for training to get.
Yeah, I mean, it is critical, and we're lucky that as part of Middlesex 3, we have Middlesex Community College, we have UMass Lowell. We're all working together to try to identify what those needs are. And I think one of the pharmaceutical companies that I represent indicated that for every scientist, a PhD scientist or a chemist, you have 2 or 3 technicians or people trained in things that don't require that advanced degree. But what they're finding is that the match between the skill level and the need isn't there. So Middlesex Community will work with, as will UMass Lowell, work with the businesses to develop a program. And workforce training is absolutely critical because that's what distinguishes us from other parts of the country. Yeah. And if you don't have that level that allows the company or the entity to thrive, they will relocate.
They will. Yeah. But first of all, we should include Shawshene Tech.
Shawshene Tech.
Wonderful Voc Tech in our area as well.
They were ahead of the curve, by the way. I mean, I listened to Charlie Lyons a few years ago talk about some of the programs that they had implemented. This had to be 5 or 6 years ago. And I remember sitting in the audience thinking, how did he get the support for that? And sometimes the support comes from you just do it, you know.
He's a great advocate.
Yeah, right. But that's an excellent example.
And you're right. We have people who are receiving unemployment benefits right now who were successful in their career,
right.
but technology has changed.
Right.
And while technology changed, they were working with the old technology.
Right.
And they're not needed at that job using that technology anymore. All they need is the training in the new technology.
Right.
And they've demonstrated success for years.
Right.
And these are the programs that can provide that type of education.
And they have the intellectual talent to be retrained.
Right.
And that's a terrible waste when someone is talented, but the programs to take that talent and retrofit it into the current needs doesn't exist.
Yeah, I was very gratified during the session last year. I filed a successful budget amendment. What we did actually was an amendment to the unemployment insurance reform. And what we did was we made sure that if someone is engaged in a qualified training program, which what we're describing would be, they could extend their unemployment benefits so that they wouldn't have to leave that program
right.
while they were training, because that would be a shame.
Right.
They would then have to become underemployed working in an industry they never trained for. This way, if they're helping themselves, if they show up to the classes, they pay attention, and they get their certification, they can continue to get that benefit so they can put food on the table and pay the rent and then be qualified for one of these jobs.
And there's a hidden political gem there, which is if they get that training and are successful, they become supporters of future programs, which is actually critical for the stability of the Commonwealth. And as you know, that's workforce training, transportation, and housing are the 3 issues that Middlesex 3 is focused on. And Judy Burke, who chairs our committee on workforce training from Middlesex Community College, is phenomenal.
She is. And it's so important because when I talk to businesses that come here and I ask them why they came here,
right.
the answer I get almost always is, it's your educated workforce.
That's right.
We can't find this anywhere else.
That's
we
right.
can find good weather.
And that's for sure.
That we're not finding here. But
that does give us the
workforce.
competitive advantage. And that's why I think Middlesex 3 is an exciting group where people are rolling up their sleeves, and we don't always agree, and the debates are very lively, but we are making tangible impacts on the major issues. And when I came on board, my advice was, you can't have the shotgun approach where you just shoot at everything. Let's pick 2 or 3 major issues, and let's direct our resources at those issues that if we are successful, they will have the biggest impact. And we decided that it was transportation, number 1, workforce training, and housing. And those are the things we've been focusing on.
Those are great choices.
Right.
And our transportation problems, our traffic problems, to an extent, we're a victim of our own success.
Right.
Because we have refilled these office buildings, and so therefore we are bringing in cars, and we're looking at ways to reduce the number of cars while supporting the employment
Right.
Statistics, the number of jobs in our district, and we're accomplishing that.
And your elected responsibility is to accomplish that. My legacy responsibility is to try to foster that. So, hopefully we could both, when the day is done, say we did what we were supposed to do.
Okay.
So,
Is there, in addition to what we've been talking about, are there plans within Middlesex 3 to create the opportunity for a walking center in Burlington, for a place where people can work, live not too far, and have the restaurants and things like that?
yes, yeah, I think that dovetails into our discussion on housing. There are certain areas that I think housing makes some sense. Burlington, and I'll focus on Burlington, but it's similar in some respects to the city of Lowell, where you have corridors that are not intrusive into the neighborhoods, that provide some opportunities to rethink how development occurs, and how we manage that growth is critical going forward. So I just firmly believe that we have to integrate housing into the equation with transportation. I mean, I live in the city. I raised my family in the suburbs, but I live in the city right now, and I can go home on a Friday night and turn my car off and probably not have to use it until Monday morning. And there are nodes along the Route 3 corridor that we perhaps could do the same. I think if you look at the evolution of Northwest Park and some of that area, when that becomes fully operational and activated, I think you'll find people that it becomes almost an enclave where people live, work, and recreate and don't have to rely on the automobile.
Right. Well, that's true, but we
Right.
also would have, even without the housing
Right.
component,
Right.
it seems that we would have, for example, your work at New England Executive Park, with the restaurants that have opened there just recently,
Right.
Tuscan Grill. We're talking about walking distance
Right, right,
to a restaurant
right.
rather than jumping
And
in a car.
if you sit in my office, starting at about 11 a.m. until about 2, you see the migration of people up and down the corridor, either walking over to the food court at the mall, walking to the restaurants, and it really is a walking environment. Because to get in, go down, get into your car, go to the restaurant, takes 15 or 20 minutes out of the lunch hour break, so to
Right.
speak, and people get outside. I mean, I'm having a little debate. I hope my people in my office don't watch this because we're on a top floor.
They might.
We're on the top floor, and I'm saying, I wouldn't mind moving down and being on the bottom. I started my career years ago in New York City on the 39th floor, and I've been going down ever since. I want to get down to the first floor and see people walking around. I think that would be fun to be on the ground floor.
Well,
I'm in the
I think you're on the
minority,
ground floor and some great ideas here.
I am in the minority, but
And as evidence of the success of Middlesex 3, we have added 4 new communities, right?
Lexington, Tingsboro, Tewksbury, and Westford.
And so other communities are interested. When I met with with A&F, Administration and Finance, the reaction I got was not only positive, but this is a model that we
Right.
should be using for the
Right.
rest of the Commonwealth. This is
Right.
the way, this regional approach is the way to get things done.
And well, I mean, you're so close to it. I don't have to preach to you about it, and you've been instrumental in it. But I mean, the Mass Municipal Association last January recognized Middlesex 3 and gave it its annual Innovation Award, the Picard Award. I think that people looking out in see this as creative and innovative and all the nice things, and as my mantra is, we have to deliver tangible results. I know I bother you all the time, but you carry that banner and you lead us through the maze of reality sometimes, and a lot of the success is a testament to you telling us which way to go.
Well, and I appreciate that just recently you awarded me your Advocacy Award for 2014.
Right,
I appreciate that.
right.
And I appreciate the opportunity to work with the Middlesex 3. And Bob Buckley, you've been a great leader as director of Middlesex 3. Folks, this has been Rapping with the Rep. This has been a great show. Thank you very much. I am Representative Ken Gordon. Tune in next time to Rapping with the Rep.
Thank